Good afternoon. It's Sunday, July 26, 2020, and coming to you live from the Lonely Tree Media Studios in beautiful Ellensburg, Washington. This is the Best Lamm Sports Show. I'm your host, David Lamm, and with me, as always, my son Parker. Say hello, Parker.
What's going on, everybody?
And joining us today is our good friend Kurt Lloyd, also known as Tech Kitty from Boss Kitty Yarn. Say hello, Kurt.
Hello, Kurt.
Woohoo! And we are live streaming on YouTube almost every weekend. We are on the Twitter at Lamm Sports, on Facebook, The Best Lamm Sports Show. You can send us an email, lammsports@gmail.com, and please check out our all-new webpage, www.lammsports.com. There's a common theme there in case you couldn't find it. You can find links to the past shows and current trivia question on the website. Gentlemen, thanks for coming, Kurt, by the way. Let's start with that. Thank you for being here.
Man, it is my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we're going to have a lot of fun today. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we're going to get right into it. The first segment of our show, as always, is brought to you by The Range in Yakima. The Range is Central Washington's premier indoor shooting facility at 34,000 square feet. The Range is an all-inclusive facility offering firearm training, retail firearm sales and supplies, full gunsmithing and repairs, custom builds, and Cerakote services all under one roof. Open Tuesday through Sunday from 11 to 7. Go see our friends at The Range, 1701 Garrettson Lane in Yakima. The phone number is 509-571-1449. The Range, educate, equip, and empower. So we have, what do we got to talk about today, guys? We are going to talk about the reopening of Major League Baseball. Baseball's back. The WNBA is back. Zion Williamson is back in the bubble. The Washington football team. The Seattle hockey team. And then there's going to be so much more we're going to talk about today. But we always start everything with our trivia question. And we will do so today as well. And I think I pulled out a pretty good one, gentlemen, because, first of all, the trivia question is always brought to you by Stave & Stone Winery in Hood River. Stave & Stone, go visit the tasting room at Broken Boulder Vineyard, 3827 Fletcher Drive. Relax on the patio with a glass of your favorite Stave & Stone wine and a stunning view of Mount Adams. For a slightly more urban vibe, you can head downtown to the tasting room at 210 Oak Street. Check out the hours, order wine, go to staveandstone.com, email them info@staveandstone.com, or call 541-946-3750. That's 541-WINE-750. Stave & Stone, wines with personality. So, like I do
Decidedly urban, Hood River.
Decidedly urban, downtown Hood River. If you've never been there, yeah. It is more urban than Odell, which is where the other tasting room
I'll give you that.
tasting room is. So, as I do every week, I went deep for a trivia question. So, here it is. With the 60-game regular season that's been adopted by Major League Baseball, there will be some interesting statistics and league leaders at the end of the year. My question is this. Who holds the Major League Baseball record for home runs over any 60-game stretch in Major League Baseball history? So at the end of the show, we'll tell you the answer. You guys think about it. And I think I gave Kurt the answer when I emailed him the thing. So, but
now I got to look through my notes.
No cheating. No, just hold on.
Shout it out in the middle of the show. You just scream at the top of my lungs.
You probably should. If at any point in time you know the answers, feel free. There's no raising hands here. So we're gonna go to Let's tip off this week with the WNBA in their restart. The number one overall pick and former Oregon Duck Sabrina Ionescu made her professional debut on Saturday as her New York Liberty lost the season opener to the Seattle Storm 87-71 at the IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. Ionescu had 12 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists for New York. Brianna Stewart had 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists for Seattle in her first game back in the WNBA since 2018. Sabrina looked, gentlemen, a little, let's say, uncomfortable shooting the basketball, and she was 4 of 17 from the field, 0 of 8 from behind the three-point line. And I know it's game one, but is anyone here concerned that looked difficult for her?
I wouldn't say so. I would say it's game one for a rookie after coronavirus.
Yeah, after a huge layoff. I don't see any reason to worry at all.
Okay. Well, you're so used to seeing her make shots. She's open, she gets the ball, she makes the shot, and it goes down. And all of a sudden, there were no shots going down, and that was a little concerning.
She also played 34 minutes. She played the most minutes of anybody on the team.
She
I
did.
think that's really interesting. I don't know how they threw a rookie out there and like, yeah, you're going to play the whole game.
Well,
every minute.
I think they have 4 rookies, so
Oh, that's right.
they are
Another rookie.
they are really young. It's going to take them a while to gel, I'm sure, but and clearly Seattle's one of those teams. Seattle won the WNBA in 2018, so they're not far removed from being a championship team. So I think there's time, and she'll definitely get better. But it was concerning just to watch. It was just hard to watch somebody who you've seen be so good at something all of a sudden not be able to do that. Does that make sense? All right. What are you going to do? Yeah.
Nobody's going to beat the Mystics, so
Right.
why worry about it?
Right. You've got a point. I mean, we'll get to that later. So MLS, the MLS is back tournament reached the round of 16, and the Portland Timbers will be playing the Cincinnati FC on Tuesday night in Orlando. Portland won their group with a 2-2 draw against the LAFC on Thursday. The Timbers have been outpossessed in 2 of the 3 group stage games and outchanced in all 3. They haven't been getting a lot of opportunities, but when they get the opportunities, they've been making the most of them. How do we feel about Portland's chances of advancing into the quarterfinals on Thursday? Anybody? Kurt?
Well, I don't see I don't see championship material in this current Timbers squad.
Yeah.
I see a lot of solid play when I watch the Timbers, and I'm going to admittedly say I haven't watched a lot of Timbers games, maybe 3 in the last 8 months, maybe.
Okay.
But I catch highlights, and I am mostly current. I do see a lot of strong play, but I just don't see powerful striking ability on the Timbers. I don't see an A-level defense. I don't see this team really getting out of that pool.
Parker, what do you think?
I think that I'm surprised that they've gotten this far, and nothing would surprise me if they move farther. When they started winning, I was like, all right, they're doing okay, and they kept winning. And then this last game, I was like, oh, they're for sure done. It was 2-1 with like 15 minutes left. I was like, yeah, this is over. And then they walked away with that one. They're surprising me. So with that in mind, nothing would surprise me. If they lost, I'd be like, yep, they didn't seem that great all along. But if they won, I'd be like, yep, they've been winning. So, we'll see what happens. If Abobasi keeps playing like he is, it won't matter. They're going to score 2 goals alone on his talent.
Yeah, and we talked about it 2 weeks ago when we were on, and the quality level of the soccer that we were watching is, and there were no goals. I mean, no one was scoring goals, and all of a sudden there was a 2-2 game that it was, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It seemed really, really strange that that the goals were so sparse, and then all of a sudden you have a game with a whole bunch of goals and nobody can play defense. So it's fun to watch. The more
kind of it down.
Go ahead,
Park.
Anyway, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch when they score a lot of goals. We'll move along. So let's talk about the NBA for just a minute. And there's a number of things. The NBA returns to action on Thursday, July 30th. 2 games on TNT. The Utah Jazz and New Orleans Pelicans, followed by the battle for LA, the Clippers, and the Lakers. The Trailblazers open the season on Friday, the 31st, against the Memphis Grizzlies. The Blazers are 3.5 games back on Memphis in the race for the 8th and final playoff spot in the West. It looks like a must-win game right out of the box for the Blazers. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I think you're on the spot.
Yeah, they have to take down Memphis if they want to get to Memphis's seed. So yeah, it makes sense.
So the 8th and 9th seeds will play a play-in series. If the 9th seed, this is like tax stuff, IRS tax stuff. If the 9th seed is within 4 games of the 8th seed after they play their 8 remaining games, those 2 teams will have a play-in game, a series, if you will. They'll play 1 game, and if the 9th seed win, they'll play another game. Winner goes in. If the 8th seed wins that first game, they're automatically in. So the 9th seed has to beat the 8th seed twice. It's really confusing, and it really sounds terrible. It's hard to explain. But that being said, they only have to be within 4 games. They're in 3.5 now, so all they have to do is keep pace with Memphis, right? And if they beat Memphis right off the bat, well, gosh, then they're only 2.5 games back, and they should be able to stay within that frame, you would think.
It's a simple win and you're in.
Kinda. Yeah, I mean, kinda. Although I think they'd rather be 8th than 9th. But then let's throw the wrench in here and talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. So Zion's back, right, just in time from his family medical emergency that we don't know anything about. And then the New Orleans Pelicans had the easiest strength of schedule of all the teams in the bubble. They were gifted the easiest strength of schedule for some reason. So and as we know, the NBA has spent a lot of money hyping Zion Williamson and making him their newest poster boy. I mean, I assume LeBron's going to retire someday, and they need someone to take over. Do you smell conspiracy?
Oh yeah, it stinks. It stinks.
How often has the NBA tried to groom a successor to a huge name, huge money drawing ball player, and how often has that ever worked?
I mean, they pretty much went from LeBron or Michael Jordan to LeBron. I mean, Kobe was in between them, so Michael Jordan to Kobe, Kobe to LeBron, LeBron to Zion.
Well, you have those. I don't know about that yet. Well,
yeah, they're trying to make it Zion.
But in between, there are usually 3 or 4 other players heavily hyped in college that the NBA tries to position, especially around the area of the draft, as, hey, this is going to be this guy. And it's not just hype that comes from sports writers or fabulous sports podcasters or live streamers. It is hype that comes from within the NBA themselves. So there's that big muscle marketing machine in the NBA, which is, I think, the powerhouse in Major League Sports. And they will stoke those fires, and they'll position somebody as hey, this is the next big thing. I saw a lot of that happen with Zion Williams. No doubt a very talented ball player, but I've yet to see anything that makes me think that he is a successor to anything, or even the first Zion Williams that we will talk about with the same kind of lavish praise that we throw at a Michael Jordan or a Kobe.
I'm not. I think they're going to try and send him to the moon, man. Zion Williams is going to be the first player to have a dunk in space if they have it their way. Like they're big on him, and I think that this is just another one of those moments where they're trying to position Zion and the Pelicans and Lonzo Ball. You know, who they backed the Ball family in that whole process and things like that. They're trying to position all of this to be that young squad that dethrones the big team. They're writing storylines, and it's obvious. I've read this book 1,000 times.
And to think, as long as you're going to mention the moon, I mean, wouldn't that have been the perfect place for the bubble?
I mean,
right?
Dr. Evil put a base up there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lou Williams would not have enjoyed the moon.
No.
There's no strip clubs on the moon yet.
I think that would be the perfect place to put a basketball court, right? And if you wanted to have controlled environment, that's the place. We're probably not there yet. It's a couple years down the road. I feel like Portland's got the 6th hardest strength of schedule, and Memphis has 5th, and then the next team down, New Orleans, has the 22nd, and I don't know how they came up with it. I would like to know how they drew those teams out of a hat, or what did they do to make it? I mean, it seems relatively unfair that 2 teams that have almost an identical record have such disparate schedules. You know what I mean?
They weren't very transparent about that process, were they?
No. And I mean, if you're only going to have 8 games, we're only going to play 8 games. But we're going to give you the hardest 8 games possible, and we're going to give you the easiest 8 games possible, even though you guys are the same record. That doesn't make any sense to me. And one more thing, just to throw out there and fuel the fire, Portland has played more games than any other team in the NBA at this point. And they played 66 games. They're the only team that's played 66 games. Everyone else is 65 or 64. In fact, I think there's one team that's 63. Since they played 67 games, that has given them more chances to lose. And if it ends up coming down to winning percentage, which is their first tiebreaker in the play-in part, where if 2 teams are tied at 9th, right, with the same record or with the same number of games back, the team with the better winning percentage will win. Well, Portland's got an extra game that played that they probably lost because they were playing without their star players. It feels like a gigantic, everything's going against Portland, and there's no way they can do this. So they just have to win everything, right?
the other option was that the season ends and Portland doesn't make the playoffs at all. So
Yeah.
at least they have a shot to make it now, because the rate they were going, they were not going to.
Yeah. Well,
Level playing field for most people.
it would be nice to see more transparency to know how the scheduling they came up with the schedule. I mean, it's not like you said, oh, we're going to play everybody in the bubble once and then we go on. You know, they didn't have time for that. So we just pick 8 teams at random, and just so happens that the team, anyway. Okay. You you feel me.
You're you got to back away from the mic. Your tinfoil hat is crinkling.
Yeah, it is. It is. You're right. It's not a. Okay, so we're gonna move from the NBA because it just makes me angry. Korean baseball, gentlemen. Korean baseball. We are still in the middle of the Korean baseball season. We are deep in the middle of the Korean baseball season. The NC Dinos have built a 5.5 game lead over the Doosan Bears, despite losing 2 out of 3 games to the KT Wiz this weekend. They've done it with some impressive pitching by Chang-Moo Koo and Drew Rucinski. And those two guys have a combined 19-1 record with a combined ERA of 1.78. And they seem unhittable. Is it that because it's Korean baseball, or is that because they're really good pitchers? Is the question I have. Have you watched it? Kurt, have you watched Korean baseball?
I watched a couple games early on.
Yeah.
I will admit, I watched a couple games. And when all this blows over, I am going to make it my life's goal to introduce drums into Major League Baseball stadiums in this country. Big way.
Well, they're trying to do trash cans this year, but that's not going to make it.
Well,
I will say there's a lot of talent, a lot of pitchers, especially they come out of Korea every year. So, now you know what I'm gonna say the second name you gave me. I'm unfamiliar with this fella,
Drew Rucinski.
Drew Rucinski.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna plead a little ignorance.
Okay.
You might be able to tell me a little bit more about how he performed, before he took the Korean League. But I am familiar with the first name that you gave me, just in passing, and I don't know enough to tell you that he's a fantastic pitcher. But the fact that I recognize a name from the Korean Baseball League, should be enough to tell you that the guy is there's definitely some talent there.
And a Korean.
So I think that could probably translate.
And I think a Korean name at that. The fact that you remember one. Anyway, because I hadn't honestly. To be honest, until I started watching this year.
I watched the games for the sheer. There's an entertainment value to watching Korean baseball or Japanese baseball, even Mexican League baseball. There's definitely an interaction with the fan base there that's unlike anything else, and a presentation that's very, very different. So pinning those names to players and faces and positions, I couldn't do. There's no way that I could do that unless I watched every day for the next 3 years. But yeah, absolutely. The fact that I could pick out a name that was in a language I was unfamiliar with and tell you, oh yes, absolutely, I've heard of this guy, tells you that there's probably some translatable talent.
For those of you who don't know, Drew Rucinski pitched parts of 4 Major League seasons, 2014 through 2018. 2 with the LA Angels, 1 with Minnesota, and 1 with Miami. Most recently, 2018, he was with the Miami Marlins. He was 4-2 with a 4.33 ERA, pitched in 32 games. His career ERA is 5.33. I mean, there's nothing.
Everybody has a great year. Everybody has a great year.
Right.
You could probably pick those out right now, David. You could probably think back and go,
yeah.
1987 was awesome.
Yeah. So he I would say he was probably destined for the Korean Baseball League. But he's been fantastic since he's been there. And you would think that with those kind of numbers, no matter who, that there's some talent in the league, you would think that with those kind of numbers, somebody will invite him back. Someone's going to need a pitcher at some point in time. They're going to need an arm. And maybe he just went there and figured out all of his issues. That could be possible too, that he just kind of corrected something, used that as a chance to work on his mechanics or whatnot. And, that happens to a lot of players. They usually do it in the minors as opposed to Korean baseball. But, hey.
He's probably seen more innings, which means he's probably worked out some timing kinks. Probably perfected a couple pitches that he was working on to give some longevity to his arm. So yeah, things may very likely have just come together for him.
Sure, he had 54 innings total over 4 years in Major League Baseball, but he has pitched 80, I think it's 83 innings this year in the KBO. So yeah, he's definitely getting a lot more opportunity. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch the baseball. I love the presentation. I love the fact that there's cheerleaders and a mascot on top of the dugout cheering for cardboard cutouts of people. That's really that's really interesting to me that the cheerleaders are still there, even though there's no fans. I don't know what to do with that exactly, how to process that, because I'm looking at the players
aren't there for the fans anyways. They're there for the players.
Right, they're there to pump up the players. You're right, except you do that by pumping up the fans. Everyone kind of, I don't know, whatever. Mel Rojas Jr., also playing in Korean baseball, is he plays for the KT Wiz. He is the league leader in almost every batting category, includes home runs, batting average, RBIs, and runs scored. He is the offense in the Korean Baseball League right now. And if you haven't seen him play, he looks fantastic out there. But again, like I said, it's the Korean Baseball League. You have to take it with a little grain of salt. It's not that they're bad. There are some great players in there, but not every pitcher is going to be one of the guys that we named. So he's feasting on a lot of other less talented pitchers. Yeah. I mean, that's how you get numbers like that. But anyway, those games, if you want to watch, those games are on ESPN at around 2 o'clock in the morning Pacific Daylight Time. And remember, there's nothing better than breakfast baseball. So the National Women's Soccer League is next. We're going to talk about the fact that the Portland Thorns, they got bumped out in the semifinals of the NWSL Cup tournament, their restart tournament. The Houston Dash just won today. They just beat the Chicago Red Stars 2-1 to take the cup title. And all of these games count towards their season record. However, they don't have a schedule for what's next. There's no when's the next game. I don't even know when they're playing again. So
typically, the title's at the end, right?
But it's not like
so
a
season's over.
No, it's not like a championship. Like MLS. MLS has played their MLS's back tournament, and then they're going to play regular season. But we don't have a schedule for that yet.
Well, maybe NWSL isn't going to come back. Maybe this is it. Maybe they're playing this little tournament and they're stopping.
Well, that would be terrible. To play 4 games, or if you were one of the bad teams, who didn't make
one game.
Yeah, he just we're done. We're in the bubble. We're out of the bubble. I don't know. It seems odd to me, and I don't know. I think that there should be. MLS hasn't announced their schedule either. I know they're going to play. Their intent is to keep on playing and have people playing at home at their home stadiums as we move forward. I don't know if that's going to happen the way the current COVID situation in the country is. And we've all seen what's, Arizona and Florida and all those places where it's booming. In Texas, because that's what happened to FC Dallas of the MLS, right? They haven't played a game because not all, but they had a number of positive tests and they had to quarantine the whole team and basically withdraw from that tournament. And how much does that make when a team who's fairly good, when they withdraw from a tournament like this that's restarting, that kind of affects the entire field and the results, right? Because you're not getting the best effort, the best teams out there, the best players, if they can't even play.
Or the worst teams. You're not getting to play the worst teams.
That's true. So it's interesting to see the what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't know where NWSL goes. I don't know if the Portland Thorns are going to come back to Portland and be able to play in a couple weeks. I don't know how that's going to work out. But normally the season would be much, much longer. But again, we're in some weird times here, so it would be nice to know more. But we'll pass it along as soon as they tell us what they're doing, because we'd like to know. I would like to know. Wouldn't you guys like to know if there's going to be soccer in Portland at any point this year? Yeah, okay. All right.
Portland's got enough crap going on. They can afford not to throw in sporting events as well.
Yeah, it's not like they're hurting to draw crowds in downtown Portland.
Yeah, I think we can get by without having the rest of the stuff. But I'm on the NWSL website right now, and I'm seeing just tons of games written out here. I don't know if they're all canceled, but 8-1, North Carolina Courage versus Portland Thorns. 8-1, Washington Spirit versus Houston Dash. 8-2, Orlando Pride.
Well, maybe they just released it then, because it was not on there. literally this
Awesome.
morning.
But this also could have been released before all this stuff, and that they just haven't updated.
It's possible those are regular season games from before the stoppage. Yeah.
Who knows?
Anyway, all right. So let's talk about baseball, guys, because baseball's back. Have you guys watched some baseball? Did you guys watch Major League Baseball back this week?
Yes.
I watched a couple of games just the other night.
Was it odd to watch? Okay, we've seen the Korean baseball with no fans. Was it odd to watch a Major League Baseball game with no fans, or did it just do we care that there's no fans there? I mean, what I'm used to is watching a broadcast in the middle between innings or even between pitches. There's a pan through the crowd of whatever. Or there's, as we go to break, there's, we're showing some guy eating a hot dog and a beer or whatever, or the foul ball and the people scrambling for foul balls, right? That kind of stuff you're used to seeing, and it fills the broadcast, right? As opposed to, oh, there goes a foul ball and it's just rattling around the seats and nobody's going to care and never going to go get it. And there's nobody here, and it echoes through the stadium when it hits the chair. Right? I mean, it just seems weird to me to watch that and to hear the sounds, because you can hear all of the baseball sounds. Anybody else feel that way, or is it just me?
I've gotten used to it. I gave up cable television a few years ago, and I have been streaming small park ball games. My love affair with Major League Baseball has fallen out a bit over the years, and but I still love the game. So I will watch a stream of a college baseball game or a high school tournament or some AA team out in the Virginias somewhere that does as a YouTube channel, or they stream through their website. And chances are most of these teams are going to have a tough time drawing 20 people to the stands. So a lot of you hear guys talking in the dugout. I've just gotten used to it over time. I don't know if the rest of a baseball audience could, if next season they had to do this, I don't know if they'd generate more viewers than they would this time around. But it doesn't bother me. I've changed the way I watch sports. So this without, it lacks something without the crowd for sure. But it has given me back a genuine appreciation for the game.
Yeah, there are moments when when I notice it, but I've gotten used to watching baseball kind of on mute anyways. Like it's baseball is such a long game, right? It is, and it has really, if you go 4 innings with no hits, that's like, all right, didn't watch anything happen for the last 45 minutes. So I've gotten used to pulling on my laptop, doing homework or doing work stuff, and kind of ignoring just looking up at the TV every so often. So that's how I've kind of been watching baseball. But then, so the other night, the A's had a walk-off, and there was no crowd to cheer. That was the first time I noticed it. This dude rails one out of the park, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's quiet. And it's like, okay, well, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
That's about as weird as it gets. But otherwise, no, I could care less that there's not. Although I did hear today we had our first social distance ejection.
What?
Yeah.
What
I don't know all of the details. I just know that one of the managers came out of the dugout, started yelling at the ref, but they had to keep their distance, so they both had masks on and were standing 6 feet apart, yelling at each other, and then he got ejected.
Really?
Social distance ejection is what they kept calling it.
Huh. Well,
Can you kick dirt over 6 feet?
That's what I was going to say. Is this Billy Martin?
Whatever.
Billy Martin would have had to have a stronger leg.
It was the Pirates manager. Yeah, him and the umpire to mask up. Before he started to walk out of the dugout, had to go back in and get his mask. and then come out and stand 6 feet apart and yell at him just to get kicked out of the game. I feel like there's not as much of an impact when you yell at somebody, you're out of here, not in their face.
Right.
You're standing a ways away. It just doesn't have the same effect.
Because you physically have to yell at them, you're out of here now for them to hear you because they're that far away. I mean, I miss, so, and Kurt, you'll appreciate Earl Weaver and and Billy Martin.
Just thinking about Earl Weaver.
And Earl Weaver was the king of being as close to you as he possibly could be without physically touching the umpire. Well, sometimes he did, but turn the hat around backwards, get right in the umpire's face so the bill of the hat didn't hit him, and you could feel the spit. You could see it.
Search for Earl Weaver. The first thing that pops up is a picture of him eating some refs.
Yeah.
At a point, it became an attraction.
Yeah.
So you didn't know how much of that was Earl, just trying to stir up the team and the crowd by getting kicked out and putting on a show, and how much wasn't. But yeah, that is I think the only thing people remember about Earl Weaver. Great coach. But man, the first thing that comes to everybody's mind is that guy must have piled 13 feet of dirt on the shoes of umpires over his career.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was a dirt kicker, and he was a yeller, and he would get hot, and it was instant, and it was borderline. You felt like at any moment it was going to escalate into fisticuffs. There was going to be a punch thrown, but he never. Yeah.
Tommy Lasorda tells a great story about intentionally getting kicked out of a ball game one time, just because he wanted to fire up his team and fire up the crowd. He came running out to scream at the official on the first baseline. Got right in his face, kicked dirt, spun his hat around, did the whole bit, got dejected, left. And when one of the coaches on his team said, "Tommy, what'd you say to the guy?" He's like, "I just went out there, said, hey, do you have plans for dinner? You should probably try my family's restaurant. It's on the east side of Philadelphia. Will you please kick me out of this game?" So it happened.
I mean, there comes a point where, your coaching strategies aren't working or the players aren't listening. And at some point you have to find a way to, put a little fire under them. And, if there's a close play somewhere, you can go out and argue, and the players feel like you're arguing for them. But what you're really trying to do is light a fire under them, saying, get moving. And yeah, I've seen that more than one occasion, but yeah, that's hilarious.
I've only seen one really good one, which was a minor league team many years ago. I cannot remember who it was. I think it was the Nashville Sounds. But the manager came out, started yelling at the umpire, and after a few minutes, they were clearly not agreeing. I didn't think this was a show. He grabs the umpire's mask and slings it into the crowd. And I was like, yeah, that'll get a message across. It's kicking the dirt, you just have to wipe it back off, but you throw the mask, somebody's got to bring that back down.
Right? Did you ever see, now I got to find his name, the manager of the Montgomery Biscuits?
What a great team name.
I know, right? Out of Montgomery, Alabama. They were playing, and I don't remember who they were playing. They were playing in a game, and their manager got so angry. He did the low crawl to the mound from home plate and grabbed the rosin bag and acted like it was a grenade. He pulled the pin with his teeth and threw the rosin bag over, and then he picked up a base and walked off with it. And yeah, he was angry.
Hugh Williams is.
There you go. I just remember the Montgomery Biscuits because that mascot is fantastic. A little biscuit with a piece of butter in its mouth for a tongue. It is fantastic.
It's a topic for another time, but I believe that baseball has the most unwritten rules around it to provide entertainment and character to a game of any major sport.
Yep, I agree.
That would be fun. That would be fun to explore. We could do that on another show. I like that idea. Baseball is entertaining, but yet we don't have cheerleaders in Major League Baseball. They got it in Korea. They're ahead of us. I don't understand. So I was just going to say, I threw out at my wife that the New York Mets are offering to put a cardboard cutout of you into one of the seats. For 80,
I wouldn't be caught dead at a Mets game.
For $86, you can get your face put on a cardboard, or your picture basically, upper body, on a cardboard cutout, and then place them in the seats before the game. And
where it gets put? No,
I don't think so. I don't know all the details because that's one of those things. I also want the cutout after the season's over, right? I want to get that cardboard cutout. But
the players should all sign them and send them back.
Right? You'd think. Anyway,
cutout. Especially if they nail it with a foul ball, you should get the ball, the half of the cutout, and
the half that's left. the cardboard cutout with the ball hole in it. Yeah. All right. So, Formula One. I know that's your guys' favorite sport. Let's talk about Formula One for a minute. Lewis Hamilton won last weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. It was Hamilton's second straight win this year, 86th career win in Formula One. Max Verstappen was second, and Valtteri Bottas was third. All three races since the F1 restart have been won by Team Mercedes. Well, they're the best drivers. They have the best drivers. And, you'd think Mercedes would have the best cars, right? Anyway, that's my obligatory F1 for update for the week.
I have a question about Formula One.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is Ayrton Senna still driving the John Player special?
Was that the last time you watched a Formula One race
That's
or
the
anything?
last time I watched some Formula One.
It's a slightly dated reference. Yeah, he's been gone a couple of days. So, yeah. Lewis Hamilton, well, they're going to race in the British Grand Prix. He's British. He's going to race in the British Grand Prix this coming weekend. And I'm like, that's not even fair. He's like a home track advantage, right? He's the best driver in the world on the best team in the world. And this should be a blowout. So he'll probably crash on lap one. NHL. We have NHL news to talk about. On Thursday, the NHL's 32nd team in Seattle, Washington, announced the release of their new name, logo, and colors. They will be called the Seattle Kraken. I am 100% not sure that I like the name. Do you?
Yeah, sounds too kiddie. Sounds too childish.
So I am the 100 plus whatever you guys aren't percent, and I love it.
Do you?
I love it.
Do you really?
Yeah. I was talking to my wife about this the other day, and she just gave me a blank stare, which, par for the course. So I'm going to tell you, and you'll give me an audio blank stare. But did you know that the last time a Seattle professional hockey team was in line to win the Stanley Cup, they did not because of the 1918 flu epidemic?
Oh,
That's incredible.
History repeating itself, right now. So maybe COVID will get in the way of Seattle's inaugural season. Have you
seen Kraken all the way.
Have you guys seen the logo?
The S-looking thing.
Yeah, it's name.
Only
It's
thing I'm disappointed in.
the logo itself.
Yeah, I mean, if your team name is the Kraken, put a Kraken on your jersey.
It's an
Scare the P out of the other team with not an S.
It's an understated Kraken. That red eye is supposed to be all the fear you need. That little red dash of red on it. I do, however, like the anchor logo that is the Space Needle.
Oh yeah, the
That's
alternate
pretty nice.
logo.
Yeah, that is a really nice touch.
So they
and
have their third logo, which just says Seattle Kraken. It looks like it's in Harry Potter font.
It is.
So
I
I
mean,
don't like that.
I expect at any time that their spokesman, Captain Jack Sparrow, will come out and announce. I mean, he'll be like with the Kraken, right? I mean, I feel like this is sponsored by
Davy Jones is who's going to come out. Who's the mascot?
Sure, maybe. And I feel like it's a Disney sponsored thing. That's why they went with Kraken. Anyway, what do I know?
This only took 2 years, right? Didn't they say a year and a half? I think they said they were going to announce a team name in April of 2019.
Well,
And this is where we are.
so close. Well, the delay was COVID related after the first 8-month delay. The last. Anyway,
So the guy making the decision
yeah.
had a cough for about 16 months and couldn't make a decision.
Yeah. I find it amazing how hard it is for people to make a decision on these names. I mean, we're going to talk about the Washington football team at some point here in a minute. And it's the same thing. I'm like, is it really that hard to decide something with a little history in the area, something that is appropriate to the sport, something, something that isn't offensive to any religion, national origin, or little kid. I don't know.
You just eliminate all the historical things.
I did. So I feel like they have a hard time making these. And when they do make a decision, you go, really? That's what you came up with?
I'll give them a break because there is a lot more. As a corporation, there is a lot more that goes into selecting a name like
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
You would imagine you have to free up make sure every trademark is freed up. Make
Yep.
sure that you're not touching intellectual property internationally because that would affect licensing deals for
Sure.
the NHL as a whole. So there's so much that goes into picking a team name. I'm going to give them a break.
Okay. Okay. I like the colors. I do.
I do. Yeah.
I think those are good looking colors. I don't know. I like the anchor. I'm not fond of the S. The name is weird because it doesn't really relate to Seattle. I don't think there's a Kraken in Puget Sound, but all right. I can overlook that. There were some names I saw online that people had proposed. One of those being the Sockeye.
Don't like it.
Oh, are you kidding me? Nothing says hockey like Sockeye.
Was my favorite. Yeah. That was my favorite on that list.
Right? That screams hockey.
No, I'm just not a fan of not a fan of ocean stuff. I want to hear about fish. I want to hear about dolphins or whales or anything like that. Like I'm just not a fan of it. The Whalers is available. I'm okay with that, but I guess that's controversial.
That's Hartford.
That's controversial.
The old Hartford Whalers.
I know they're not a team anymore. They're not using it.
Oh, you're right. Good point. There's probably some sort of a registered trademark thing going on there. But anyway, I mean, if you don't like that, you're not going to like the Tacoma Tilapia when they come out with their team. I'm just saying.
Delicious. So versatile.
I mean, right? You can do anything with that team. Anyway,
they absorb the flavor of the teams they play.
That could be the worst thing we've ever said on here. So now let's move from hockey to NCAA football. We're going to talk about NCAA football. Parker, you're going to get fired up because I'm going to throw something at you. We talked about previously.
Get fired up.
Notre Dame is in consideration. The ACC is considering a proposal to allow the Notre Dame to play for the ACC championship this year if there's college football. This is, and I'll remind everybody, this is Notre Dame that is an independent. They don't belong to a conference. They do have 6 regular season. Well, it can't even be regular season if you're independent. They're non-conference games, but they have 6 games this season with ACC teams already on their schedule. Half of their schedule is probably already blown up because the Big Ten and the Pac-12 already said no, and that includes USC and Stanford and Michigan and the teams that they would have played. Those are already out the window. And I know it's Notre Dame trying to preserve a season, not having their whole season canceled, but shouldn't they have thought of that beforehand? Because you didn't join a conference and it's monetary, I know, and there's TV things I know, and I'm okay. But I feel like at some point in time you could have just buckled down and joined a conference, and this wouldn't I got to do something now to preserve my season wouldn't apply to you. And who do I blame? Well, I blame Notre Dame, but
yeah, you love to blame Notre Dame.
Well,
let them flap in the wind. I'm with you, Dan.
Okay.
I am not a Notre Dame sympathist, or I don't think I sympathize with them. Is that the word? Sympathizer?
Sympathizer.
Mm-hmm. That sounds wrong. Anyways, I do not sympathize with Notre Dame at all on a daily basis. However, this is not their fault. Like this whole thing is blown up. We're blaming it on COVID, really. And now beyond that, they're just asking the ACC, hey, can we come play football with you guys for a little bit? Because no one wants to play football with us right now.
They should have
just
saved NBC money.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why they can't. I think that's why they're having trouble is that schools won't take them in with that contract because it interferes. If you try and join the Big Ten, it interferes with the Big Ten network. If you try and join the Big 12, it interferes with the Big 12 network. If you try and join the ACC, it interferes with the ACC network. And now they're not going to get their paydays for the big games when they play you because your network has to cover it because of your massive contract.
Right.
I think that it's bigger than yes, it was a mistake to get into that sort of contract with no flexibility, but at this point, it doesn't really matter whether they did it or not. It's here. It's the way it is. So I think I said yesterday when we talked about it a little bit, which is that they'll probably not do this again. They'll probably not sign another massive contract like this again. They'll probably join a conference when this is up. But this year, I'm not mad about it. Everyone's just trying to do whatever they can to have a little bit of football. So I'm not going to be super mad at Notre Dame. Yes, they should join a conference, and yes, they should have done it a long time ago. But the last time they were up for joining a conference and a TV contract, they were super successful, so they rode that money train all the way to the bank. So they didn't need to worry about it. But now it's kind of biting them in the butt. But if the ACC lets them in, then that's on the ACC. We can't be mad at Notre Dame for asking. We can be mad at the ACC for saying yes.
Let me ask you another question. What happens if Notre Dame is allowed to play for the ACC title and they win it?
And there'll be that little asterisk next to it for the COVID season.
Right,
Shame
right.
on the ACC.
How bad will that look on Clemson? If Notre Dame comes in for just 1 year, part of the year even at that, and says, "Oh, we're champs, bye, have a nice," and we're out because COVID's over, and I'm going to go back to being independent.
Maybe this is an opportunity for the ACC to go, "Hey, let's let them win a couple guys, get them in here permanently, and then we'll just beat them again."
Sucker them in. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I got you.
That's right. They're hustling. That's what
They're
it is.
hustling. Nice. It's possible. I don't know. I feel like it's a I don't like Notre Dame. I'm not gonna hold any punches back. I don't like Notre Dame. I don't like the fact that they're independent and they won't join a conference. I don't like the fact that they used to always schedule Army and Navy and Central Michigan as part of their complete schedule all the time. Why don't you just guarantee 3 wins? I mean, that's ridiculous. And the rest of our schedule is so tough. Well, okay, but if you joined a conference, you'd have half and half, right?
I hate those independent football teams.
Half
Army.
Easy games and half tough games. I mean, yeah, for every Michigan that you play when you're in the Big Ten, you're also going to get to play Indiana. You're also going to get to play.
Yeah, but you're crapping on Notre Dame, and like I just said, there's BYU and Army. I've never heard you come out the gates hot about their schedules, hot about what they're doing every year. But Notre Dame, you're consistently on the heels of. Air Force was independent up until recently, and then they joined the Mountain West or whatever.
BYU.
But there have been all these other ones.
Yeah, BYU used to be in the MAC.
And then they left.
Or not the MAC, the WAC. I'm sorry. They used to be in the WAC, and they left. But that was a big dispute with them, and when all the realigning happened. Yeah, my gripe is always with Notre Dame.
With being independent, I don't think it has to do with being independent. I think you just don't like Notre Dame. I think you don't like what was the coach Brian
Kelly.
Brian Kelly always he always gets you fired up for whatever reason. I think you got something against Notre Dame, and you're willing to take whatever evidence you can get to support that. But there are other schools out there. I'd love to see the same fiery passion towards Army scheduling.
Well, Army doesn't bother me because they aren't going to win anything anyway.
Because they suck?
they don't have a chance. So, I mean, if they play...
You're worried about the threats to your team.
I'm worried... Well, not just my team. In general, to the upper echelon teams when you get to pick and choose what you do. I don't think that should... Nobody else is in that same boat that's any good. Right? Why are they allowed to just be that? Why does the NCAA not jump in and say, "Hey, you have to join a conference. You're a Power 5 team. Be in a Power 5 conference. We don't care which one it is. Just join one." And that to me, it seems like the NCAA picks and chooses their battles, and they don't want to fight that one for whatever reason. And everybody else is. I mean, there are some teams out there that probably should be Power 5 teams or could be Power 5 teams that aren't, that are in that other group of 5. Boise State comes to mind right off the top of my head. They could be a Power 5 football team. They could be in one of those conferences and compete. I don't think they could do it at every sport level, but they could probably do it in football. But anyway, they joined a conference. They're in a conference, right? They would be happy to join a Power 5 conference. I think they'd jump at it. But when all that expansion happened, right? Everybody was adding teams. How come Notre Dame didn't jump in one? Maryland even became Big Ten.
Because they don't need to join one. They got that NBC money. They don't need the revenue. The reason why most teams join a conference is so that way they can get financially supported through TV deals and through conference revenue sharing. They're not doing that. They don't need that. They're good. They've got donors from everywhere across the world. They've got this fat TV contract. They're centrally located so they can get anywhere pretty easy. They don't need help.
My point is they get preferential. They get preferential treatment. Because
they do.
They don't play in a conference. They don't play a conference championship game. So at the end of the season, when they're 11-1 and looking like a team that could go to the college football playoff, that last week of the season where Alabama's playing Florida and Oregon's playing Utah and Clemson's playing whoever the crappy team that they're playing is, when those championship games are there, Wisconsin is playing Ohio State. What is Notre Dame doing? Nothing. Resting.
They're not doing anything, and every one of those teams has an opportunity to get a better seeding. They also have an opportunity to lose their seeding.
That's what I'm saying.
But that's an opportunity regardless, both ways. It's
sure.
Equal.
But I'm getting at
Notre Dame does not have an opportunity to gain or lose. They're stuck where they're at, and everything's going to happen around them. They have no control in that last week. You're talking about it like they have all the control because they don't play. No, they have no control. Well, everyone's going to move around them.
If they're as good as they think they are, which they always seem to think that they're good, everybody seems to think they're good. Somehow they get ranked in the top 10 every year, and they end up not necessarily being that good, but whatever. What I'm saying is, if you think they're that good, why are you not going into a conference to prove that you can win a conference championship game, to win a conference? Notre Dame's never won a conference. They've never been a conference champion, and yet they play for a national championship. They get in the college football playoff if they wanted to, if they have the right season. And lately, they haven't been good enough to do that.
Have they gotten into one yet? I don't
Not
think so.
not since 2015, no. But they're right there at the beginning of the season. Everybody will start talking about them. Oh, Notre Dame. They got the schedule. Oh, they're playing Georgia. Okay, well, yeah, they played one pretty hard game, and then they played Navy and Army, and anyway, whatever. So I knew you were going to get fired up. I was going to get fired up about it. So we.
I just don't like Ara Parsegian.
There you go. See that guy.
I don't care for the guy.
If he would leave, eventually, they could
They
probably.
got that young buck Lou Holtz they're looking at.
Yeah, they're due for some change for sure. And the last note I have for college football is that Wisconsin's athletic director Barry Alvarez, he said recently, like this week, that the university would stand to lose $100 million if they cancel the college football season, and their whole athletic budget is $140 million for the year. And yeah, that's that. I think there's a lot more coming. A lot more schools are going to be in that same boat where that came from. If they cancel, and they haven't, the NCAA committee that is supposed to determine fall championships, what to do with them, hasn't decided yet. They haven't made up their mind. They're waiting. They're postponing. They're waiting to see what happens. I don't know what it's going to take for them to make up a decision, but when you stop and think about all of the bowl games that are played in Arizona, Texas, and Florida, where all of the COVID is spiking, and you can't have fans currently if you tried to play a bowl game there, what's the championship level? What are you going to do for a championship? I mean, how are you going to play that in those warm places where you want to play them? Anyway, just a thought. I don't know how it'll affect their decision, but they got to make one soon because you can't. Oh, we're gonna go. Oh, let's pull the plug the day before the game starts, right? So I think that would be frowned upon, and it would lose a lot of support and fans. Am I wrong?
I think that they'll have the decision made a week before the college football season starts. Because at that point, you've already invested 20 days of fall camp and paying coaches, paying players, equipping players, things like that. You've already invested a lot of money in it. I think it'll be a week before. Will be whether the states allow them to do it or not. That's it.
Gotcha. All right, so we've reached our well over halfway point.
Oh yeah.
And the second half of the show is brought to you by BossKittyShop.com, and I'm going to hand this over to Tech Kitty, who's going to do the ad for Boss Kitty today.
I'm going to read your ad copy because I think that would be fun.
Outstanding.
I want to see what you say about my business.
Okay.
Parker, does he say nice things?
Yeah. Yes, it's nice.
I'm not buying it. Boss Kitty hand-dyed yarns. That's us. Right out of my kitchen to your home so that your baby can have its 6th sweater knitted for it. Go to BossKittyShop.com. You have no idea how many baby sweaters I look at every week. People post, I bought your yarn and I made a baby sweater. It's like 6 things you can knit, apparently. Go to BossKittyShop.com for your yarns, notions, and Boss Kitty merchandise, which is no longer there, but it's coming back.
Oh.
Because you want it. My wife, and both of you guys can attest to this, my wife is a human cartoon character. And as well as BossKittyShop.com, you can go to BossKittyLive.com because we do a show out of a studio right here in Salem, Oregon, 3 times a week, where they just, it's people sitting around and knitting and talking about knitting, and actually it's so much more fun than that because she is a human cartoon character. So go check that out as a special treat for the listeners of this program. We have been giving you a one-time use coupon for 15% off of your purchase at BossKittyShop.com. But because I'm on here today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in my shop before this show ends. And if you go to BossKittyShop.com and make a purchase and use the code LAMMSPORTS, LAMMSPORTS, LAMM Sports, at checkout, I'll give you 25% off for the next week.
Wow.
So until this show comes up, I'm going to bump it up from 15 to 25% off at BossKittyShop.com with the code LAMMSPORTS. Boss Kitty yarns so boss, you'll knit your pants.
Wow, that was fantastic. That was way better than I've ever done it.
Not bad.
Way better.
I've done it a couple times.
I give that a 9.
Thank you. That's That's great.
Right? That is a good score. Because I'm mailing it in most weeks. It's like a 7 at best. We have a lot of stuff in the second half, but we're gonna pare it down just a little bit. I wanted to talk about the New York Jets and Jamal Adams being traded to the Seahawks after he said some crazy things and demanded a trade, and he got it. And I wanted to talk about Kansas City Chiefs starting guard Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who is a medical doctor who has opted out of the NFL season. And I guess I just did talk about those two things. And I wanted to talk about the Washington football team, who can't come up with a name, and I don't know when they're going to. But we're going to move right along because we're going to do a real quick AFC preview. We're going to start our NFL preview for the year. We're going to do the AFC this week. We're going to do the NFC next week. Let's start with the AFC real quick. I want to talk about who is the best team in the AFC this year. Who is your favorite? I'm not telling you to pick a winner, but who's the favorite right now to win the AFC? Parker?
Chiefs. Not even close. Too much talent. Best quarterback in the league.
So
it's not a lot of discussion there. They're the best team in the AFC, and it's not even close.
So
maybe you can make a case for Lamar Jackson. Maybe you can make a case for Deshaun Watson. Maybe. But really, you just have Patrick Mahomes. He's proven for the last 2 years that he's going to do it and can do it. So I think it's the only way to look at it.
Okay. Kurt, you got a favorite?
How do you not agree with that? Like 100%. This is a team that already should have been a Super Bowl champion. I don't see anybody with the shoulder strength to knock them off where they are right now. Not in their division for sure, not in the AFC as a whole.
Do we give any credence to the Ravens? Are the Ravens going to be? I mean, Lamar Jackson was fantastic last year. He had a great year running, throwing. He did everything. How about Phillip Rivers at Indianapolis? Does he make that team a contender?
All these teams are good, but they're not that level good. They're all good teams. They're going to win 8, 9, 10 games, but none of them are going to dethrone the Chiefs. It just doesn't. You just don't see it if you say it out loud. You're like, all right, Phillip Rivers and the Colts versus the Chiefs. Nope, it's the Chiefs. All right, Lamar Jackson against Patrick Mahomes. Nope, Patrick Mahomes. It just wipes away real fast.
Do you say that
a lot of the moves that I've been seeing of late are of individual play? Here's a quarterback. We're going to stick this quarterback over here, and he's going to revitalize that team. But I don't see equitable shifts in. Hey, we're going to change the mentality of this team, and we're going to really focus on defense. And I don't see that kind of overhaul happening in the AFC.
Do you think that Kansas City can duplicate what they did last year? Do you think it's just about the talent and they're just overwhelming talent and it doesn't matter if they're even a fraction as good, they're still way better? Or is it they're going to have to do what they did last year? It's hard to do 2 years in a row to be at that level that they played last year.
They did it 2 years in a row.
Well,
I mean, they didn't win a Super Bowl the year before, but they were competing for one. So they were that good to be in about that position.
Okay.
I think they lost in the championship game, or the AFC championship game. But still, I mean, you're making it that far. 1 year, the next year you take it, you win a Super Bowl. They rallied back from every game in the playoffs, every single game. Not only did they never have the lead to start the games or halfway through games, but they took the leads back and then held them and won. It's the most resilient team I've watched in the past 15 years. They can't lose. They don't know how to lose. And it's great coaching. It's great talent.
Okay, so Kansas City wins the AFC West. Who finishes second?
Ooh. See, now there's the debate.
You got Denver. You got the Chargers. You got the Raiders. And which one of those teams is going to finish second?
I'm going to be a homer. I'm going to say Broncos. Go Coast.
Go Coast. Is that even a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a T-shirt that says Go Coast.
Okay.
You're not going with the Bucks, huh? You don't see the Bucks coming in second?
I don't think so.
No, come on. Look at the awesome offense they're putting together in Tampa.
Oh well,
they're NFC though.
Yeah, they're in the NFC. They're in a different. We're going to talk about them next week.
Oh, you're talking about. I'm sorry.
We're talking about the AFC West.
The AFC West.
I'm in the
AFC West.
Overall, number 2. You're absolutely right though.
Oh, I don't know. And then we'll talk about that next week. I don't want to get started because I don't.
You caught me looking through a note.
I don't like Tom Brady. I don't like Tom Brady either. So that makes it hard for me to pick them. Yeah. Okay. So I felt like it was that division where the rest of the teams are going to be mediocre, and they're all 7-9, or they're all something like that, where one team is 13-3 and the rest of them are awful. All right, well, so the North, the AFC North, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, and of course Cincinnati now with Joe Burrow. Who wins the division? Because of Lamar Jackson? Not even with Ben Roethlisberger coming back, you're going to stick with
Ben Roethlisberger has to be back, play back, and stay back for me to start trusting him again.
Even with Baker Mayfield, you're going to pick?
I do not care about nor do I care about Joe Burrow.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to hear it. I wanted to hear who we're picking. I personally think the Steelers are going to show you something this year. It may not win, but they're going to be close. It's going to be close. Those two teams battle. Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they've been battling since they've been in the same division together. And I feel like Pittsburgh's there. I think they're going to be there this year. Put it all together. I could be wrong. I don't know. Don't listen to me. AFC South, you have the Tennessee Titans, right? Tennessee, Houston, and Indianapolis. And then, of course, we know Jacksonville's probably going to finish last, right, in that division? Yeah. So, of those three teams, who wins that division? Tennessee went to the AFC Championship game last year. Am I wrong?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Ryan Tannehill? I mean,
Deshaun Watson and Phillip Rivers make that a tough one.
Is Derrick Henry enough for Tennessee to push him? Is he running? I mean, he was a beast last year.
I didn't think he was enough last year, but they managed to squeak out games. They're doing what I said earlier about the Timbers. Like, they have one guy who's playing out of his mind, and they're winning games, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't win games.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if Derrick Henry still has 150 yards a game, but they're also losing games. None of that would surprise me.
Okay. All right.
So I think I'm gonna go with Houston.
Okay. I think it's still Tennessee until they get knocked off. I think they didn't do anything different. They didn't lose anybody except a backup quarterback, who I think is probably a starting quarterback at most places, but they didn't do anything to hurt themselves. You know what I mean? So if they won the division last year, I would have to say that the other teams would have to have gotten better. Indianapolis may have done that. I didn't think Jacoby Brissett was that bad a quarterback. So Phillip Rivers is an upgrade, yes. At the end of his career, yes. I don't know. Anyway, that was something to think about. I don't know what's going to happen. I do know Jacksonville's going to finish last. So that's the only thing I know. And then quite possibly the worst division in the AFC is going to be the AFC East, thanks to Tom Brady leaving. I don't think Cam Newton is there. Can he do what Tom Brady did? Because
he says he can.
I know he does.
Of course he would.
And did he strut into camp?
Yeah. Well, he struts everywhere with that some crazy outfit or something on usually, right? Cam Newton is one of the I don't want to say sharpest dressers, craziest dressers I've ever seen it in sports. Right? Him and Russell Westbrook have this like alliance where they dress weird. I don't know. It's just me.
It's called fashion you wouldn't understand.
I wouldn't understand. You're absolutely right. I don't make enough money to understand that kind of fashion.
Every year for me, before the first snap, is this decided in my brain as the breakout year for the Jets. So I'll just say it now. This is the breakout year for the Jets. I mean, once you snap a ball, it's all in the air. But every preseason, it's the breakout year for the Jets. So that's where I'm going. AFC East every time.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with the Bills. They had a lot of talent last year. They played really well last year. I think that losing Tom Brady and being the uncertain future of Cam Newton, I think that it makes it ripe to be taken.
How many players, coaches, front office personnel, how many of those in Buffalo, Miami, and New York literally at some point in time when they heard the news about Tom Brady went, "Oh, thank God"?
Every one of them.
I mean,
every one of them.
I thought I could hear the audible sigh from Miami. I literally
every
could,
one of them.
right? Yeah. Because I'm a Dolphins fan and I know they're terrible.
Oh yeah, and then they moved to the same state and are now going to take away a bunch of your viewership.
Yeah. Miami doesn't have any viewership, so it's okay.
Fringe Dolphins fans quickly became Bucs fans.
Well, that happens a lot. Have you noticed? There's a lot of fringe fans that jump from team to team. They always seem to be supporting the winning team.
There's a lot of people who wouldn't leave the Dolphins and go to the Patriots because they're interdivisional, and that would be like betrayal. But now you're leading conferences altogether. It's okay.
All right. Who's the team that could win the AFC this year that we aren't talking about? Who's the team? We just talked about everybody, but who's the team that could win it? If the Kansas City stumbles and falls, Patrick Mahomes breaks his ankle and loses his 10-year, $500 million contract, who is the team that steps up and becomes the AFC champion if that happens?
If it comes down to a fist fight, I'd say Houston.
Ooh.
I think Houston.
That's a scrappy ball club.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with that decision. I think Houston would be a great choice.
Okay. All right. I'm going to still go with the Dolphins. But anyway, that's provided Fitzpatrick plays the whole year.
JETS. Jets.
All right, so we are at our last segment, and it's something that we actually Kurt dreamed up for us, and it was his idea completely.
I love talking about failure. It's
one
of my favorite topics.
So we are going to discuss right now some of the biggest sports busts in history. Could be any sport. The only caveat is that there's no Ryan Leaf. We're not talking about Ryan Leaf because we all know that he's probably the biggest sports bust in history. So we're going to go. It could be anybody else, and we kind of want to hear the justification as to why he's a bust, or she, if you picked a woman. Anyway, it could be any sport. We don't care what it is. I just want to hear who it is and why you think they're a bust. What were they expected to do, and what did they do? So we're going to start with Kurt. This is your idea, so you get to lead off and tell us one of your sports busts.
All right. How many of these do you want to do so I can prioritize?
Well, who's your number one? Give us your number one.
My number one is a career criminal. So this guy coming out of college, absolutely fantastic ball player. There's no doubt this guy is going to be great. But what the league doesn't know is he's been gambling on games since high school. He comes in as the savior of the Baltimore Colts. And we're talking about 82. He carries his gambling addiction with him to the point where he is already in trouble before he signs for any kind of bonus. Gets in the league, doesn't play all that much because he doesn't have the accuracy. His off the field stuff starts to get really, really bad to the point where he has to go to the FBI and say, these guys are going to kill me. And in order to go to the FBI to save his life, that means the league has to find out about his gambling problem. And there is a zero tolerance for betting on sports games if you're an NFL player. He washed out in about 2 years and then began to rob people. He will be getting out of prison on my birthday this year and will probably have to turn around and go back and spend even more money paying back his victims. And I'm talking about Art Schlichter. This guy is probably one of the most pathetic human beings. And I have a lot of compassion for people. If you have a mental illness, I have a lot of compassion for you. But this guy is a career criminal. He has spent everything I'm sure he stole in high school to pay off his gambling debts. And he has not stopped yet. And he was I think he was picked third or fourth in the 82 draft. And he washed out in about 3 seasons and continued to rob people blind. But if you just looked at him when coming out of high school and college, he was the last quarterback for Woody Hayes. He was the guy that threw the interception. You remember Woody Hayes got fired from Ohio State when he smacked around Clemson linebacker, Charlie Bauman, I believe it was. Schlichter was the guy that threw that interception. So if that puts a little perspective in it, he was going to be the savior of the Baltimore Colts. And he was the guy that was the starting quarterback for the Colts when they backed those trucks up in Baltimore and moved the team to Indianapolis. I think he played like 4 games the next year, and then he was done. But I have no sympathy for this guy whatsoever. He's had plenty of opportunity to turn his life around. And the fact that he was a bust is just ancillary to the caliber of human being. So he tops my list of just all-time terrible ideas to draft and pay somebody in sports.
Oh my God. Okay. I like that one. I like Art Schliesser. I remember.
Justify that.
Absolutely.
Justify
that,
my choice.
That was well over the, not more than I expected. Art Schliesser played in 13 career games. He was drafted in '82 by the Baltimore Colts out of Ohio State, number 4 overall, and he has a career 0-6 record as a quarterback. He threw 202 passes, 45% completions, 1,000 yards, 3 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He was never good at it, and I don't know if that had to do with the fact that he was distracted the entire time. But he played 9 games in 1984 for the Colts before they moved to, well, that was after they moved. He missed the 83 season because of a gambling suspension. So, yeah, his second year.
Yeah, that was the FBI thing. He is in prison right now because he set up a fake business to collect money and then return NFL tickets, NCAA tickets, Super Bowl tickets. Collected millions and never thought about returning a ticket.
I feel like
it just seems dumb.
I feel like he's a living definition of if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And I don't know. Okay. I like it. Parker, did you even know Art Schliesser? You're not old enough.
The reason why I know who he is because of John Elway.
Oh, okay.
So he was drafted in '82. The next year in '83 was the year that the Baltimore Colts were like, oh, we're going to draft you. John Elway's like, I'm not going to play for you. If you draft me, I'm going to play baseball instead. And then they still drafted him anyways. And he's like, all right, I'll play baseball. Like, fine, we'll trade you. It's a waste of a draft pick. But I heard an interview with John Elway. He talked about this guy, Art, and he said that it was one of the reasons why he didn't want to play for that organization is because they wouldn't fire this guy. He said it showed low character on the kind of the organization that they wouldn't get rid of him.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah, this also had Lawrence Phillips in it, and but this guy is the one that stacks at the top of my list.
Yeah.
All right, Parker, who you got? You're number 1.
Well, so my number 1 bust. It's a sad story, but I'm gonna go backwards from him. I'm not gonna tell the whole story, then say it. I'm gonna go the other way. Robert Griffin III. Robert Griffin III was an absolute bust, and it's unfortunate because he was injury plagued. However, at some point, your durability is in your hands, and it's no one else's fault. All right, if you get Theismann, that's not your fault. Alex Smith got hurt, and it wasn't his fault. But if you keep getting hurt over and over and over and over again, at some point you should either stop playing so people stop having to put you in a position to get hurt, or you should maybe change your personal trainers, change your doctors, find a new way of doing this, find a new system to stay healthy. But he came in the league. He won Rookie of the Year, the Offensive Rookie of the Year. He was fantastic, and this was after he won the Heisman Trophy the year before. He was fantastic, but it lasted one season, and then injuries over and over and over. And then when he started coming back from injuries and playing, he couldn't stop throwing picks. He couldn't scramble anymore. His legs aren't there anymore. He lost all of that mobility. He stopped being able to take any hits without having to leave for 3 games. It was a really unfortunate one because the guy was really talented. I used to watch him put up 60 points a game at Baylor by himself. So I really hated to watch him go down that hole because of injuries. But like I said, at some point, it's nobody else's fault that you're getting injured. You're either in the wrong line of work, or you have the wrong people around you giving you advice and you're listening to them. So,
yeah, that's an interesting choice. He's 16-25 career record as a starter. He played 3 years in Washington, 1 year in Cleveland, and 2 years in Baltimore. But he's thrown 43 career touchdown passes to 28 interceptions, which is not terrible. It's not bad, but a lot of that had his first year when he threw 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So his rookie year he was good, and then all of a sudden he wasn't anymore.
Round 1, pick 2, he should still be a Pro Bowler right now.
Yeah, he should be in his prime right now. Yep. You're right. He missed the entire 2017 season due to injury, and then came back with Baltimore. All right, okay, I can see where you go with that as a bust. Okay, so I'm gonna give you my number 1, and then we'll talk about a number 2. My number 1 is someone that Pacific Northwest people will recognize the name. This guy is 6'11" center, born in Chicago, Illinois, who came into the NBA draft as one of the, relatively unknown, I would say, but not completely unknown. He had done some stuff in college. He was a good college player. I wouldn't say great. He was good, but he was the drafting team. There was something that they needed, something they were looking for. They were looking for that type of player, that size of player, that guy, and they thought he was going to be that guy. And the team that drafted him, of course, was the Portland Trail Blazers. He ended up playing 4 seasons for Portland, and he averaged 5.3 points and 4.6 rebounds over a 4-year NBA career. But he was the number 1 overall draft pick in 1972. And you would think the number 1 overall draft pick in 1972. And Portland has a history of this, right? I mean, every number 1 draft pick they've had has been terrible. But he played 4 years. He was not great. He was, below average, well below average, played 4 years, and then he was out of the NBA. They traded him to Seattle, and he never played in Seattle even. I'm talking about LaRue Martin.
I love LaRue Martin.
LaRue Martin was as big a bust as you'll probably find in the NBA.
I feel bad for that guy.
I know. But he just couldn't do it. He just could not. He played almost the whole 74-75 NBA season. And it was his best year ever. He averaged 7 points and 5 rebounds in 16.9 minutes per game. But he just was not. He was a terrible shooter. He's a lifetime 41% field goal shooter and a 68% free throw shooter. So if you can't shoot when you're a big man and you're supposed to be playing close to the basket, those are the guys who lead the league in field goal percentage. I don't know. And so he was one of the long line. He started that whole tradition of Greg Oden and what's his name? And what's his name? From Kentucky, Sam Bowie. And Portland's got a history of drafting these big guys that are, even Bill Walton, who played a long time, has 2 NBA championships. He should have been much better had he not been hurt. His injuries took a toll on him. He should have been thought of like Kareem, really. You know what I mean?
Didn't Portland draft LaRue Martin because they weren't allowed to draft Bob McAdoo?
Whoa, no, that's farther than I know about.
Wasn't that there was that draft, that 72 NBA draft? They were up against the ABA, and the ABA's draft was supposed to come after the NBA's draft, but they held a secret draft and signed a bunch of players. And the rumor was that McAdoo had already signed with the ABA, and the commissioner of the NBA at the time told teams, don't draft Bob McAdoo. He warned them against draft. So we ended up with LaRue Martin.
It's funny because McAdoo ended up being drafted second by the Buffalo Braves. And he played a 14-year NBA career, and we all know how well that went. The other players in that draft that Portland could have taken would have included Paul Westphal, Julius Erving. There's some players. There were some players.
Playing the ABA, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But Portland also got Dave Twardzik out of that draft. He's one of my all-time favorite Portland Trailblazers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Corky Calhoun was drafted by Phoenix. Ended up playing in Portland. But I remember Corky Calhoun, Dwight Davis. There were some players. There were some players in that draft they could have taken, and they just missed. You know what I mean? They went and got this guy, and
I don't blame him for not. I give him a pass because they would have had to play for Jack McCloskey, and man, there was an unpleasant fellow to play for.
Henry Bibby was in this draft. Also, he was drafted 58th or something like that by the New York Knicks. Anyway, all right, that was mine. because it's one of those basketball. You guys, both went football, and I went basketball. So in a shorter version, Kurt, who's your number 2?
Probably Matt Harrington. Do you know Matt Harrington?
Off the top of my
head. Harrington was a. I give this to him because he was drafted 5 times. He was the college baseball player of the year in 2000, and he got drafted by the Colorado Rockies with like the 6th or 7th pick of the draft that year, and he hired this agent who said, "Yeah, I've already talked to him. We're going to get a $5 million signing bonus." And when the team came back, they offered him 1.5, and he's like, "Yeah, no, don't worry about it." He told the family, "Don't worry about it. This is part of a little negotiation process." And the team went, "No, we don't know anything about a $5 million signing bonus. We're not going to give it to him." And he ended up not signing that season that he was drafted 7th overall. Came back the next year, was drafted in the 2nd round, and his agent again started to screw him out of a deal by asking for too much. No team was willing to pay anything that this guy was asking for. He ended up getting a different agent. Guy did the same thing. In 5 consecutive years, this guy was drafted further and further and further down the list. He never signed a major league contract, never played ball. He was offered 7 figures right out of the gate coming out of college, and he passed it. And he never played a single game of Major League Baseball because he just refused to budge on his demands for salary. So Matt Harrington, I'm giving him a draft bust because he was technically drafted. I'm giving him a bust for being a bonehead.
Yeah, I think.
I also have an honorable mention, and it's kind of personal.
Go ahead.
Took my father out to dinner one time. We were actually just downtown doing some shopping or whatever. I said, "Hey, do you want some food and watch the game?" Sure. There's I'm going to go ahead and say it because they're not going to. Buffalo Wild Wings down the block. So we go down there and we're standing in line and we're waiting. We're waiting like 20 minutes. And the hostess says, "It'll be another 5 minutes." We wait another 20 minutes. We're there for about 45 minutes to get a table. Darius Miles walks in, talks to the hostess. The manager comes up, and Darius Miles and his little squad are escorted to a beautiful booth high atop a corner area that you got an unlimited vantage point of all the TVs, and he was being served while we were still waiting. Darius Miles, nobody remembers you. Nobody's going to remember you. I don't care where you were drafted. I don't care that you were in a movie. Nobody cares about you, and I hope those wings were delicious.
But you're not bitter about it, so that's what's best. Okay. Yeah. And just a clarification, Matt Harrington was drafted in the 1st round of the 2000 draft by the Rockies, in the 2nd round of the 2001 draft by the Padres, in the 13th round of the 2002 draft by the Devil Rays, in the 24th round of the 2003 draft by the Reds, and in the 36th round of the 2004 draft by the New York Yankees. Yeah, you can just hear it going down. His first year pitching in the minor leagues, he played.
That chute never opened.
He played for St. Paul, Minnesota, the St. Paul Saints, and he was 0-2. He pitched in 6 games. He started 6 games. He was 0-2 with a 9.47 ERA, and this is a guy who is demanding a lot of money. So, yeah,
I watched a 30 for 30 on this guy. That's how I know who he is.
That's crazy.
And he is back now, working in the tire department of a Costco for $11 an hour. He's playing for the minor league, or not even a minor league, the independent league team.
Oh my gosh!
In his hometown, and people are screaming at him, "You're the reason the ticket prices are too expensive." They're just screaming at him. At one point, his brother and his father, who were at one of the games, just leapt back into the stands and got into a fist fight with some people in their own town.
Oh my gosh!
Because they couldn't stand the fact that their family had just become a punchline.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, Parker, who's number 2 for you?
My number 2 is a villain amongst college football. Everyone hated him, unless you were a fan of his team. I'm talking, of course, about Johnny Manziel. Drafted 22nd pick, 1st round of the 2014 draft. Spent a little time with the Cleveland Browns, a little time being key there. Moved on to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Montreal Alouettes, the Memphis Express, and he has since said that he is giving up football. So Johnny Football is my guy. This dude could just not get out of his own damn head. I think he was talented enough. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think he was great, but I think he was good enough to lead a team to 10 wins. He couldn't stop thinking or not thinking. I'm not sure. One of those two things. He was doing both.
I would tell you from watching him that he was uncoachable. That was the reason that his downfall. And you saw it at college. You saw it when Kevin Sumlin was at Texas A&M trying to coach him. He wouldn't listen to him. He had no idea. He wasn't doing. He was doing his own thing. I would hazard a guess that half the plays that they called, he said, "Oh, screw that. I'm gonna run what I want."
Johnny Manziel was good at being famous. That's what he's good at. He's not great at football. He's not great at anything in particular, but he's really good at being famous. And there are a lot of people like that nowadays. It's becoming a career path almost, being famous as a career. And I remember when he went to the Alouettes. Do you remember Vernon Adams from Oregon?
Yep.
He plays the Alouettes. And Vernon Adams had the starting job, and he had it for 4 games, and they won all 4 games. And then Johnny Manziel was like, I'll come play for the Alouettes. And the Alouettes were like, oh, bench Vernon Adams. Start Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel started that game, threw 3 picks before halftime, and got benched. And Vernon Adams came back in and won the game for him.
Oh my gosh.
And I've never seen somebody handle it with more class than Vernon Adams. I would be so upset. But yeah, Johnny Manziel, he was a punchline in college, because I remember watching those games and going, he's not good. Mike Evans is good.
Right.
And other people are good. I was like, he's all right. He seemed to have a knack for making something out of nothing, but not in the same way Russell Wilson does it. Russell Wilson makes something out of nothing, but it seems like it's like he's thinking it through. Johnny Manziel doesn't always seem like he's thinking it through. So yeah, he washed up. He hasn't done anything since. The guy won a Heisman Award as a freshman, and I didn't agree with that. He won a bunch of other awards. I didn't agree with any of those. He's just a bust. He's just a plain bust. You know, he's late. He was a late round first pick, so it wasn't one of those super high ones. But you still expect some time out of your first round quarterback pick.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you on Johnny Manziel. I never did like him. I didn't like his attitude. He came in and was difficult, right off the bat, and look at me kind of player. And he never, he had talent. He had an ability. He just wasn't willing to take the extra coaching or listen to people and do what the extra work necessary to make himself into something that was special. So there's a lot of players like that do that. That they're good, natural ability, but if you're not willing to put in the time to make yourself better, you wash out. Johnny Manziel. All right. I have one last one, and it's football also. So this guy was the 3rd overall pick in the 1994 NFL draft out of Tennessee. And he played parts of 4 seasons for the Washington Redskins and the New Orleans Saints. Career 8-14 record, 15 career touchdown passes, 33 career interceptions. Started 8 games for Washington in 1994 as a rookie. He went 1-7, and then of course was promptly replaced. I'm talking about Heath Shuler, and Heath Shuler, for a number 3 overall pick as a quarterback out of Tennessee, you'd think that you'd have a guy there. That's a real player. Not so much. He is, however, a state representative in Tennessee. So he's kind of my turn your life around, come back from failure guy. How about that? He failed as a quarterback, but now he's a legislator in Tennessee. So, you know what I mean? He definitely did something right.
You had 2 of those guys on your list.
I did. I had 2 of those guys on my list.
LaRue Martin turned out to be a hell of a guy after basketball.
Yeah. So
what did he do after basketball?
He is the he's a community outreach coordinator for UPS, but he works with a ton of community charities, YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs. He's done a ton of great work in his community and around his state as a businessman. And then his business ventures afterwards have been community outreach. So he's obviously somebody that, that gets down and is able to talk to people in various communities and draw them together. So good for folks like that.
And just a super nice person. I mean,
yeah,
one of those Kermit Washington guys.
What's that?
Oh, like a Kermit Washington.
Yeah, Kermit Washington. Love Kermit Washington. Yeah, I mean he did crush Rudy Tomjanovich's face in a game, but I he broke his face literally. But yes, Kermit Washington is one of those guys. I love Kermit Washington. Anyway, so trivia question. You guys remember what the trivia question was? Are we gone so far that we can't remember what the trivia question was? The trivia question was, who holds the Major League Baseball record for home runs over a 60-game stretch? Because we're only playing 60 games this year. I want to know how many home runs, what's the potential? What's out there? What could we expect to see as a record, the record for the year or the league leader? So anybody know the answer to it without looking at the answer I gave you?
No, I didn't even see it on what you gave me.
So. Okay. Anybody have the answer of who holds the record for the most home runs over a 60-game stretch in Major League Baseball history? No?
I have no clue.
Okay. It is Barry Bonds. So Barry Bonds hit 37 home runs in a 60-game stretch from April 13th to June 23rd of 2001.
Is that peanut head Barry Bonds or basketball head Barry Bonds?
Basketball head Barry Bonds. At that point, yeah. No, I was looking at the pictures when I was researching it. And I was looking at the pictures of him playing for Arizona State and then Pittsburgh, and when he was skinny and fast. And then I looked at the San Francisco pictures where he is chunky and big, and he's literally two of himself when he started.
Is he in the hall?
No.
Okay. If he ever goes in the hall, they should just do a display of his cap, his fitted cap in his rookie year, and then the caps throughout his career up to the very end.
As they get progressively larger?
Huge.
Yeah, because he's probably a size 8 now, is my guess. I mean, right? I wear a 7 3/8. That's my baseball hat size, which is fairly large. I mean, considering it's not big, but that's a pretty good sized head. Anyway, 8. I've seen an 8. I put an 8 on. They had some hats for sale one time. I was out looking at baseball hats. They had some 8s. I tried one on and it went down over my ears like a I don't know. It was so huge. I was like, the difference is gigantic. But I'm guessing that's probably close to the size that he wears because look at his head. Anyway, Sammy Sosa had 34. He's the second place. 34 home runs from May 22nd to July 31st, 1998. And he may have been doing that with steroids and a corked bat too. So asterisks abound in that particular instance. But 37 home runs in 60 games. That is
I think they should. I think they should stop. This is how you're going to save baseball. Stop keeping stats and just tell stories. Like, I saw this guy who hit all these home runs. Nah, he's nothing. I saw this guy. Just don't keep stats. Just tell stories. Make this a storytelling game. It will become America's pastime once again.
It's true. The best
stats have ruined professional sports.
The best storytellers will make that happen. You're right. It's a good point. Anybody got any last words other than wash your hands and practice social distancing? That's what we've been saying every week.
That's all I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Well, say it again.
Wash your hands, people. Come on.
Yeah, even Lou Williams wore a mask.
Doesn't protect you for those types of things.
It's in the picture. He's wearing the mask that the NBA gave him. So good for him.
I mean, he's trying, at least, right?
There is no mask that's going to save you for the types of illnesses you get at those places.
he thought they said come to Florida for bubbles.
Oh my goodness! Our next show is going to be Sunday, August 2nd at 1 p.m. Again, we're live streaming on YouTube almost every weekend. We're on Twitter at Lamm Sports, on Facebook under the Best Lamm Sports Show, and you can email us lammsports at gmail.com. Go to www.lammsports.com. Don't go there right now, but go there in a few minutes when I actually load today's stuff on there. Well, you can go right now too, but you'll have to come back if you want to see today's show and today's trivia question. I got to load that on there. So my social media coordinator is a little slow on the draw, and that is me. We want to thank our sponsors, the Range in Yakima, Boss Kitty Yarns, Stave & Stone Wine Estates in Hood River. We also want to thank Boss Kitty Yarns Tech Kitty, Kurt Lloyd, for joining us today. Thank you, Kurt, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers will win 5 games.
Wow. You heard it here. I'm writing. Actually, let me write that down. 5. Kurt, 5 games. I got it. Okay. I want to make sure that I have it written down so that we can have proof that you said that later, right? And it's on audio too. This has been
I'm hanging on.
Okay. This has been a Brain Rock production, a division of Lonely Tree Media. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to everyone next week.